Morning, all morning. Good morning, Roxanne. Thank you so much, as always, for my brooms. Sweeping time has begun. Think for yourself. Good morning. Rena Jennings, morning, Rena. Brookman, good morning. Gerald Pascal. Manswell, morning. Denise Bramble. Trevor Carter Nelson, morning to you. Sedena Kwashi, morning. Arlene Lewis, Priscilla Holder. Keelan Jackson, morning. Althea, morning. Christopher Sylvester. Right. What's going on with this? See. Felix Hospitalis, morning. Morning, Shah. Cyril Mayas, morning. Annette Moses, morning. J. Dimples, morning to you. Juju Bernard, morning. So we have another Juju, very nice. Pauline Buckmeyer, morning. Ray Ray, Ruben Rogers, morning to you guys as well. Real Raga, proud to be Trini. Kathy Ann Best, Alison Rogers, Henry Amsterdam, morning. And the Patriot, morning Dish. Fred, morning. Desmond Samuel, good morning to you. Who do we have on Facebook? Morning, Diane. Come on, what's going on here? Minad Lasari, morning. Morning, Carol. Is it raining on your side? It was raining by me a little earlier. Pamela O'Connor, good morning. Annette Beard, morning. Candice Joseph, morning to you. Ruth Frontin, Alison Boyce. Margaret Thomas, morning to all of you guys. Laverne Brown, Claudius Alexander. Morning, Deborah. Rude, morning. Udani Bruce. Maria Alfred, morning.
Must be prosecuted under.
Joy Ragunanan, morning, Joy. Interesting. See something here. Right. So let me see who else is there. Alana Rose, morning. Morning, Jenny. Garnet Greenwich, Phyllis Antoine, morning. Phyllis Farrell, morning. Right. So let me get into it. It's now 6:40. I'm late and this is another hectic morning for me. So let me say morning as well to Mother Tuna Puna, to Mr. Chance, morning. Mr. Yates, morning as well. Marlene West, Laverne Brown, morning. And of course, we must extend condolences to the family of the late Fazal Karim, former Minister of Science, Technology and Tertiary Education under the People's Partnership. And again, I don't know why it is the media of Trinidad and Tobago always insists on referring to people in their previous dispensation rather than what their current status is. Like when Karen Nunes Teixeira pulled that stunt the other day and jumped over the railing at Mr. Pandey's funeral, and they kept referring to her as former PNM finance minister. That was in her past. She has a current status of deputy political leader of Hope. So I'm sure she would prefer to be referenced as that. But then again, ego is a hell of a thing. And hubris. So while Mr. Karim, yes, I'm not sure if he was UNC or COP. But again, in his most recent dispensation, he had left that den of iniquity, and he too was a member of Hope. In fact, I think one of the first flyers I saw come out on social media advertising Hope and some event that they had, Fazal Karim's picture was prominent on that flyer. Himself, Timothy Hamel-Smith, and others who were part of the People's Partnership, who left and went on to form this new entity called Hope. In Gary Griffith, I see he put out a lot of them putting out statements extending condolences, and he would have indicated that within recent times, in the last few months, Fazal Karim would have reached out to him and would have offered his support in any way that he can. And I'm sure he probably had confidence in Mr. Griffith, as did a lot of people. Not so much anymore. But I was listening to a live with Philip Alexander a little while ago, and I don't know, between him and Gary Griffith, I don't know who has the bigger ego. All they hear is, I did this, and I did that, and I like his apparent, they sing him. That's all. They're so great, and they did such wonderful things. Well, I know Gary must be beside himself over the last couple of days. He has been the topic of discussion everywhere. Yeah? His name is on the lips of so many people. Not always in a good way. You still have those who defend them, and well, yeah. I think they were supposed to have a rebroadcast of this press conference that he and Munila did last week, Friday. They were supposed to have it, I think it was Sunday night on I can't remember what station. But it was postponed to tonight. And even if I remember the station, I'm not going to say it to promote it because it was just rubbish. But again, the most how I should put it by the most significant question that needs to be asked is, who is paying for that? And where they get the money from? Because primetime television is not cheap. They have money they can barely pay the rent for their headquarters, but they have money to come on television and rebroadcast a press conference for 1 hour. That ain't cheap. So again, we ask the question, where did this symposium that they had last week, Monday, this crime symposium, where they get the money for that? Where they get the money to rent out that space in La Jolla and all of that, and so where did that money come from? These are the questions that we need to be asking. The eyes on Balize House, talking about financiers. Who are your financiers? We know a lot of the financiers have run from them, especially after the outcome of the last local government election, where there was this expectation that the PNM would have been routed. They were going to massacre the PNM. That's what they led us to believe, right? People like Ralph Maraj. This coming together, this return of Gary Griffith and Jack Warner. People are excited. There is a momentum in the air. People are hopeful again. Hopeful for a brand new day and a new dawn and a new era in Trinidad and Tobago with this coming together of Jack Warner and Gary Griffith and Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Right. Yeah? So Gary the Great, Jack is back, and Kamla couldn't make a note. Right? Right now, based on the toss-up of seats, because I think one of their councillors died recently, the former chairman of the Penal DB Regional Corporation, whose funeral Mrs. Persad-Bissessar did not attend, notably. Right, so she's selective in whose funeral she will attend and will not attend. But if she can't get any mileage from it, it's a waste of time. So we saw at Mr. Pandey's funeral, she gets some mileage there, right? Total disregard for the family. Yeah, you're going on to demand cremation and looking to shake hands, take pictures, and so on. Self-aggrandizement. Right? No regard for the event, what it meant, time and place. Wave your hand and move on. Right? You sit down, you view the proceedings. It is noteworthy that at no point in time did we see any interaction between Mrs. Persad-Bissessar and any of Mr. Pandey's relatives, in particular, Michaela Pandey. At no point in time, from Mr. Pandey's first stint of laying in honor in the Red House. Again, Michaela was there. There was no interaction. We saw her come outside, walk the pavement, shake the hands of the ordinary citizens, but she was not about any sort of fanfare with any of these politicians. Same thing in San Fernando. Again, but we saw what the UNC did. Mrs. Prasad Bisasa and her people had to make a whole production while they line up outside in the courtyard of the Red House, wait for me to arrive. When I come, I walk the line, shake everybody's hand, and then I lead you all inside. Well scripted production. We go inside, we view the body, and then we hold a press conference in my office, and I would say a few words about Mr. Pandey, and then we open up the floor for questions from members of the media. Normally she wouldn't make herself available for questions from the media, right? But on this occasion, trying to get mileage. And her supporters like that. So I see Mr. Warner has written an article in the Sunshine newspaper in which he is calling for rapprochement, calling for Kamla and Michaela to bury the hatchet, and for the UNC to embrace Michaela Pandey and give her some sort of position in the party, least of which is for them to give her a position on the executive of the UNC in the first instance, which we know Kamla Prasad Bisasa will not do. The moment she does that, that's the end of her political career. I'll just read a little bit of it. For the love of country, Kamla and Michaela must come together. An article written by Jack Warner in the Sunshine newspaper. Kamla Prasad Bisasa and Michaela Pandey have to find a way to mend the broken bridges of the past and spare Trinidad and Tobago from another 5 years under the PNM and keep Christopher Rowley. Both Kamla and Michaela have to put action to the rhetoric of country before self if we are to escape the torture and torment we have suffered since 2015. The death of Basdio Pandey has opened fresh wounds within the UNC. This is the party that was founded by the 5th Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Ever since his passing, a silent turbulence has emerged. And even though many have noticed, very few have been willing to address this unrest before it evolves into an uncomfortable tsunami that leaves the nation in turmoil leading up to 2025. It is in anticipation of the impending instability that they need to come together and bury the hatchet for the people Basdio Pandey sought to emancipate during his lifetime. Basdio Pandey's death has raised an issue that is threatening the success of both parties, and it is only the coming together of these two important women that could stem the tide and put the country that Baz founded. Put the party that Baz founded on equal footing to challenge and win the general election. Many believe that the Pandey family was treated badly after Kamla Prasad Bisasa won the vote that led to lead the UNC in January of 2010. And many felt that the party could have shown more gratitude to its founder by not unceremoniously dismissing both her daughter and her brother from positions they could have held within the People's Partnership government. There are many who have fanned the fires of discord, claiming the PP sought to purge the UNC of the Pandeys, an act which is literally impossible given that Baz founded the party. Really, Mr. Warner? And of great significance is the fact that all UNC politicians, whether they have emerged from an alliance or partnership of parties, owe their seats in parliament to Basdio Pandey, the man on whose shoulders all opposition politicians have stood since 1995. One of the holy books speaks about exaltation of the humble, and this was evident throughout the funeral proceedings of Basdio Pandey. Humility was the virtue most spoken about as the reason for the charisma he possessed. Pride, however, speaks about a fall that is sure to come, and for the legacy of Baz, this is not the end anyone wishes to see of the party the great man has founded. Throughout Pandey's funeral, a chill was felt, and I don't think I need to read anymore, right? So is Mr. Warner admitting that the UNC does not possess the capacity to beat the PNM in its current constitution? Is he admitting that notwithstanding Jacques is back, notwithstanding an alliance or an accommodation with Gary the Great and the NTA, notwithstanding the fact that they have Ansel Roger and some factions of the OWTU now in cahoots with the UNC, that all of that, and they still cannot beat the PNM. The same PNM which they describe as the worst PNM ever. The worst PNM ever. And all of that and all that still can't beat them. You need now Makila Pandey to come and join the fray in order for you all to have a, what as you consider, fighting chance to beat the PNM. But yet still Prasad Bisesa, every time she mounts a platform, we will win. And Munilal, when we win the next election, and when we win the next election, and Gary the Great, and this government which will be removed shortly, democratically removed shortly. Well, they're trying to fool and mama guy. So in the public space, all they're saying that, but one of the main partners in this unholy alliance is in an article basically admitting that you all are weak. That despite this amalgamation, you all are still too weak to be the PNM. This horrible, terrible PNM. This wicked and evil PNM that don't care about poor people. This wicked and evil PNM that always saying do nothing for the last 8.5 years. For Trinidad and Tobago except bring hardship and tribulation. Really? There aren't too many others who could come. Well, I understand there's supposed to be some talk between, well, that is in the public space. There's supposed to be some talk between Hamel Smith, I think, and Gary Griffith. Some talk about coming together. Whether or not that would mean the Hope joining in, and again, another unholy alliance as what took place in 2010, or if Gary will jump ship and say, well, here what, I'm going to try my hand with Hope. Because at least with Hope, you have one or two other persons of, well, anyway, that's just a repeat of 2010, right? Because they got into office in 2010 because they had a few people who it was believed still had integrity. And it was believed that these persons would check the corruption of the others in the partnership, those from the UNC, who we know had no integrity. And we said perhaps there's a balance. So people like Winston Lucaran, people like Timothy Hamel-Smith back then, at the time, you had Gillian Lucky was part, well, she wasn't part of the partnership, but, you know, COP. You had Anand Ramlogan when it was thought that he had integrity. Like we saw a total flip after he became Attorney General. And one or two other persons like Vernon Dilleman and so on. These are people who are upstanding persons in society at the time. Persons not known to be in any wrong stand-up. Right? And people get fooled and say, well, if you have people like that, yeah, it will work out. So if Kamala and them decide to try to thief, these people will keep them in check. Well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. They just went in there and who capitulated early and went their way, and the rest who remained just stayed quiet. Whilst all the wrongdoing took place, they just sat down and had nothing to say. Poor Winston, what you gonna do? Better you had kept your party intact, and maybe today you all might have been the opposition instead of the garbage that we have masquerading as an opposition. But it is an indictment, and I'm pretty sure Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, if she saw this article, and she probably did, would not have been too pleased. Someone who sent me this, it reads, Jack's article amounts to a vote of no confidence in Kamala to achieve victory. It is also a dagger at the heart of her aspirations because without Jack, it makes it difficult to amass forces in Tunapuna and St. Joseph, despite Gary's ties. Despite what Gary tried, The return of Jack was essentially the cherry on top of last year's local election campaign, and without him alongside her, now means she is even more vulnerable to internal attacks than before, and especially when we draw our conclusions from what Jack intends from this article and the interview of Carlos John. And so, Mr. John, for those of us who would have seen his recent interview, would have spoken to, well, he has no intentions of coming back into politics, so he says. Many of them will say that, and then they come back in some incarnation, whether it's in the parliament or to lead some board or some kind of thing, as the case may be. But again, who else is there for them to join with? If even getting the support of the OWT and Roger couldn't help them. So now, with the death of that councillor, I think they are now at 69 seats. The PNM is at 70, and we have 2 by-elections due. So the one for Lengua Indian Walk, and the seat that would have been held by this late councillor. So they are now in a deficit as compared to. But they will boast. They will boast and tell you, we won the popular vote. Really? You won with 130,000 to your 189,000. The PNM still has more districts than you do. What does that tell you? Right? But look, watch the map. Most of the map is yellow, and you only see a little bit of red in between there. And the PNM gerrymander the thing years now, and they and population density and all of that. Okay. With 130,000 votes to your 189,000. Today, the PNM has more districts, local government districts, than you all do. Right? And even with these 2 by-elections, even if you win, you would just have 1 seat ahead. But you have people like Ravi Rajaram coming to tell you they've done the calculations and they've analyzed the results of the local election, and based on their analysis and extrapolating data from here and putting it there and whatnot, that they are set to win 24 seats in 2025. 24 seats. So they expect to get St. Joseph, Tunapuna, Sagri Grande, San Fernando West, and I can't remember what's the other one. Yeah. So they expect to take all the marginal seats, come on the east-west corridor, and take seats. But the likes of Anil Roberts, seemingly for St. Joseph, but I'm hearing some talk that Gary is maybe interested in St. Joseph, so we will see how that pans out. Right? We'll see how that pans out between the 2 of them. Julie John again wanting to go back to La Horquetta Talparo. We'll see if she's coming back with fridge and stove and furniture set and so on this time. Appliances and furniture for votes. We'll see if they come back with that strategy. It didn't work in 2020, but let's see if it will work in 2025. But who are they offering? Really, nothing new, nothing of substance. So again, it is an admission by Jack Warner that without some level of amalgamation, they can't win. They're not seeing the path to victory. They're not seeing it. So they want to jump on Mekila back. Now, any currency that Mekila may have been able to pick up from her father's death, the value of that currency with each day that passes wanes. Because right now, still early days yet since Mr. Pandey's death, and she would be enjoying some level of public sentiment, right? But if she does not act on that soon, if she waits too long, given the fact that elections is just a year and a few months away, I don't know if she would be as potent in unseating the UNC as she could be if she starts now. Yeah, she's she's between a rock and a hard place. Because on one end, you don't want to look like you're trying to prostitute your father's memory for your own political gain. And on the other side, she may still very well be grieving, because we know when you see Mekila, you see Pandey. Right? That was his mini-me, if you want to call it that. We don't save and except for when he was prime minister, and we used to see, from time to time, we would see, what's her name? Vastala or something, the last daughter. But otherwise to that, I think his other daughters lived abroad. And so the one child we all really know is Mekila. Right? That's Pandey. We know that she even speaks like her father. The same way his diction, the way he would pronounce his words, the little accent and stuff. She's her father in print. So I know she would be grieving still, right? Every public function we've seen within the recent past that Mr. Pandey would have been invited to and that he chose to attend, he always came with Mekila. Never saw him coming with Oma. Right? So she was there heel on heel with her father. So maybe the reason why she hasn't done anything yet is because she probably still hurting, and it's understandable. Speaking as someone who would have lost 2 very close loved ones in the space of, between 2016 to now, I certainly know how that is, and you don't get over it quickly. It takes time. But she doesn't have time. But now Jack is advocating for them to bring her into the fold. So the disenchanted UNC supporters who fed up of Kamala, fed up of the rest of them now, who see them as a losing bunch, would gravitate and come back home and rally around Michaela. It would be so evident what they're trying to do, to use the girl. But now is the time for her to, well, let me not say now is the time, right? I'm just saying that politics is a funny thing, and if she plans to do anything, notwithstanding the fact that she's still grieving, she don't have much time. But it don't really matter to us, right? Because at best, she may be able to take a seat or two from the UNC, but it doesn't affect the PNM. Right? It doesn't affect the PNM. And then it would depend on who can she get at this late hour, because as people starting to decide which stable they want to run to, the persons available to her to come to join with her is limited. I think she would have lost some people to Gary Griffith's NTA. If memory serves me correctly, this guy, Kenman Jones, I stand to be corrected, but I think at one point in time he may have been aligned with the Patriotic Front and Michaela Pandey, and he's now with the NTA. And again, so maybe she might be able to pull a few people from there into her fold, because that alignment with the UNC ain't working. But they don't have too many other persons or groups they could join with. Other than if Hope decide to come on board, all these other parties like Gavin Nicholas and Steve Alvarez and them have no consequence. So really and truly, there isn't much that they could do come 2025. So right now they're in desperation mode. So that is why you will see them starting to up the ante, so to speak. So this press conference that they had last week, Friday, that they're coming to bring on mainstream media tonight, for us to see, to listen to Gary Griffith and Rudal Munilal, that's part of the propaganda campaign. So when they want to talk about the PNM running scared and all of these different things, no. The fact that Dr. Rowley could hold one press conference and have Anil Roberts in a tailspin, could have Gary Griffith in a tailspin, tells you something. And that's all the doctors. Drop says he will have a meeting now and again, drop something on the chest, and he going about his merry way, and they're stewing in the fat for weeks over what he said, and he have no time with them. You see, he's going about the country's business, and all we want to say that Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar was a better prime minister than Dr. Rowley. So what Dr. Rowley was doing yesterday, opening the energy conference, he sat down and he did a one-on-one with Thackeray Driver, who is I can't remember what is his position with respect to the energy chamber, or so, president or something of the energy chamber. But that is what Dr. Rowley is doing. And when you listen to him and listen to him articulate government policy with respect to the energy sector, that is what we want to hear. We never used to see and hear that from Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar. She was most present to cut ribbon, to insult, read a prepared speech. But to do like Dr. Rowley, to sit down and have a conversation off the cuff, you throw questions at me and I can answer intelligently. You wasn't seeing that. Chalk and cheese with these two persons. So I'm seeing an article in today's newspaper. Government spent $38,375 on CARICOM Saudi Arabia summit trip. Let me repeat that figure: $38,375. Well, I'm sure that would have been to the chagrin of the UNC, because you'll recall Mr. Rudal Munilal on several occasions would have referenced this trip at the time when Dr. Rowley went. First of all, he said Dr. Rowley abandoned the country and he gone gallivanting all over the place, and they will be filing a Freedom of Information request and posting questions in the Parliament to find out how much money is being spent on this trip for Rowley to go on a joyride. And their estimation is that it will cost at least $3 million based on their calculations and so on. But here it is, we are seeing government spent $38,375 on CARICOM Saudi Arabia summit trip. While the Saudi Arabian government facilitated the air travel and accommodation for all attendees at last November's CARICOM Saudi Arabia summit, the TNT government incurred expenditure associated with return flights to Barbados, and the expenditures associated with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley involved a total cost of $38,375. This was confirmed in a written reply from the Prime Minister to an opposition question that was circulated in Parliament last Friday. So they came good on their promise to pose the question in the Parliament. Right? They said they were going to do that, and they also said they were going to file a Freedom of Information request. And it was done, and much to their disappointment, far from the $3 million figure that Munilal told us it would cost, at least it cost only a fraction of that. But you see, that's what's happened when you like to push propaganda. Yeah? That's what's happened, because I was at talk how much money Rowley wasted to go Saudi Arabia, and we're going to come out from that trip. Yeah, the supporters were talking that. Wonder what they're saying now. Because the key point to note is that Dr. Rowley didn't take a whole jumbo jet and carry 20 people on a jumbo jet that could hold 153. But bet you bottom dollar, if Posadis as Prime Minister, that is what was going to happen. Or perhaps we would have had a repeat of what happened for Nelson Mandela's funeral, where at great expense to the citizenry and the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago, she would have taken a jumbo jet out of operation so that she could fly to Saudi Arabia. Not Saudi Arabia, sorry, South Africa. But on the way, she decided to be magnanimous and pick up all of the other leaders, regional heads of government on the trip. She said, oh, we have room on the plane. I pick them up now. Yeah, well, you can meet us we'll meet you all in Barbados, or we'll meet you all in Guyana or wherever. So, or we'll make 2 stops. So we're picking up one trip in Barbados and we'll pick up the next trip in St. Vincent or Antigua. Yeah. Because we can't go from every island to island to pick up everybody. So see how you can arrange. So you pick one trip, meeting. So you need to get yourself to Antigua, or you need to get yourself to Barbados, and we'll pick you all up from there. And as if that wasn't bad enough, and again, at taxpayers' expense, Trinidad and Tobago taxpayers, I would try to locate that video again, where the narrator was Gideon Hanuman Singh. She's sitting up front, the plane, business class, and one by one, each of these prime ministers had to come and sit down next to her and pay obeisance and tell her how grateful they are for the opportunity, for the kindness shown to them, to give them a ride to and from the funeral. At your expense, you taxpayer, Trinidad and Tobago taxpayer. I'll find it. I remember the first time I saw that, I was appalled that these leaders, regional leaders, will allow this woman to prostitute them like that. Right? Whole cameras, you see cameras set up at the front of the plane. Come, who next? Yeah, Portia, you next. You need to come and sit down next to Kamala and sing her praises and tell her what a wonderful prime minister she is and how grateful you are that she gave you a ride. Yeah, Ralph, where? Is my turn? Yeah, Ralph, come. Come. She ready for you. Come and sit down there. Say something good about her. Sing her praises. You could hold her hand too and pat it and all of that. Who else? Who next? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, back in Trinidad, I guess it had no poor people here. It had nobody struggling to make ends meet. Nobody was living paycheck to paycheck. So we can more than afford for your tax dollars to be used for that purpose. Right? It's noteworthy Dr. Rowley wasn't in that foolishness to go and sit down and sit down next to her and sing her praise. He's not in that. You made an offer to me as opposition leader to go right. I accept it. I didn't ask you. You ain't doing me no favors because I didn't need to go. Understand? But since you ask, okay, no problem. But don't expect me to come and sit down next to you and praise you. None of that foolishness. Right? Yeah. But for the rest of them, if they want to do it, that's good for them. Don't call me for no stupidness. That is the nature of the man that Dr. Rowley is. So they vex because he gave a story on Thursday about how he had to pretend to be her husband to view the body of Nelson Mandela. And then we see the cunning and conniving individual that she is. You did all of this so that you could convince Dr. Rowley to support legislation that you were going to bring for to increase parliamentarian salaries and the salaries of judges, right, and other members of the judiciary. Not their salaries, their pensions. You did that so you could kind of curry people. They say, well, you see Keith, I do your pay. You see, I carry it. You see Nelson Mandela. I bring you to the funeral. I can't carry anybody else, no, but I bring you. So, what do you think? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Couldn't do that in Trinidad. Couldn't call a meeting. No, they tried to curry favor and so on. As Dr. Rowley said, the legislation made sense because judges for years have been complaining the paltry salary the paltry pension that they get after giving years of service. And then the law states that they cannot work, they cannot go back into private practice as attorneys for a minimum of 10 years after they retire. So with a meager pension and the inability to practice your craft for 10 years, you have a lot of judges who are struggling. So, and this is part of the reason why they don't pay taxes. The only public servants, as far as I know, in this country who don't pay income tax is the President of the Republic and members of the judiciary. So, in an attempt to keep them honest, we don't want them taking bribe to deliver judgments that goes against the public good. So, but those of who have real expenses, and if they don't put their financial affairs in order, could find themselves in a little bit of problems when they retire, right? Cue Hubert Volney. So one day he on the bench, and the next day, yeah, he feels the Holy Spirit rolling up some snake or something. So you remember that, right? Yeah. So, and Dr. Oli supported it, and when there was public backlash, she tried to put it on the government, on the opposition, sorry. And so, well, them supported it, so don't be blaming us too. It's not like Rowley and them said they didn't want it. They supported it. You brought it because you figured it was good legislation, and it was at the time. But I recall, I think Mr. Warner at the time indicated he was the only person who didn't support it, because I think at that time by then he was out of government. And I remember when we had started, that was the only time the ILP criticized the opposition, PNM. Boy, did we get licks for that on Sunshine Hour. We get blows. Blows when we will close, we knew close. We go in out close, we stay in home close. I remember James Thomas here. You remember Mr. Thomas from the late Mr. Thomas on that station? Mr. Thomas used to call the Sunshine Hour morning and evening, religiously. And the one time that we criticized the PNM on that issue, well, boy, Mr. Thomas take a turn in way backside. After that, lesson learned, we are on a station that has predominantly PNM supporters, and we fell in line. But in any event, the instruction from Mr. Warner eventually came that we are not to criticize the PNM. Not that we really used to, because the focus was on the UNC. And so that's why how come people used to say the ILP and the PNM is A team, B team. But the sole focus really was to get rid of the People's Partnership, because we knew they were no damn good for Trinidad and Tobago. And so Mr. Warner would have. Anyway, that's all in the past. But just coming back before to the original article that I read that Mr. Warner would have written with respect to the need for this rapprochement between Kamla Persad-Bissessar and Michaela Pandey in the lead up to the 2025 general election. They're looking for everything and anything, anybody they could pick up, right? Who could lend some level of credibility to that thing that they call a party. Yeah? A set of crooks. And they want to now come and try and use Michaela Pandey for that. But she's smarter than that. Right? Smarter than that. But I have it on good authority that Mr. Warner, after he lost to Marvin Gonzalez in 2020, had sworn off of politics. He had given up on politics. He wanted nothing to do with it. Now, I was not part of that campaign because I knew he couldn't win. And when I was called to be a part of it, I indicated to them that is a losing battle. Mr. Warner cannot win that seat. There are too many pockets in that constituency who do not need anything that Mr. Warner is offering. So they talk about he wants to put a market in Aruka and he wants to put a library. These things will not move these people to vote for Mr. Warner. These persons, you have a lot of neighborhoods in that constituency, that Lupino Bonner West constituency, that are considered middle class. And therefore, the only thing these people just need for the government to do for them is to provide the basic things, proper roads, lights, water, the things that the government is required to provide. But they don't depend on the government for any level of financial support. Even the government's healthcare system, most of them don't use because they have private health plans and so on, and they would use the private health facilities. So they don't really need. So there was nothing Mr. Warner could offer from a public perspective that could move these people to say, we're willing to overlook our views and beliefs of this man and give him our support. I told him that. And I said further to that, I have moved on. I have gone back home to the PNM, as others have done, who went back to the UNC and so on. But it can't be that you're part-time. You're going back home, but then you're willing to. I wasn't in that. I said, if you all listen to my program, you know where my heart is. So I can't help. But all the best to you. But I knew he wasn't going to win. And the political banker that he suffered after that was significant. And he indicated he was not going back. In fact, when he was first approached in the lead up to the last local government election, he was adamant he was not going back. He was not interested. So many of them went to him. I say, he's not interested. He's done with that. And then certain offers were made if they get back into office. And it was on that basis, from what I was told, is why he ended up coming back out. And we had Jack is back. Yeah? So, yes, inducements have been made. That if we get back into office, we will do so and so, or we will offer you so and so. Right? Yes. But he wasn't interested. And again, from what I am told, he was used. So his money, or what's left of it, some of it would have been used to fund their election campaign because they had no money for jerseys. They didn't have any money for this, money for that. And again, they found a way to rope him back in with offers if they come back into office. And so I'm told. And yeah, so should be an interesting ride. But needless to say, I think Mr. Warner is going to be 81. Is 81 or 82? I think it's 81 on the 26th. On Friday, I believe is about the 28th. Well, this coming weekend here, he'll be 81. Certainly, he's not the Jack Warner of 2010. He's not the Jack Warner of 2015. He's not the Jack Warner of 2020. I saw Mr. Warner on television. He's a shell of his former self. And they wouldn't leave the man alone. Let him be. But clearly, he doesn't have the wow effect that he would have had when he was younger and stronger in 2010, 2015. He certainly doesn't have the deep pockets that he had back then either. I can tell you that. How I know I'm not going to say, but needless to say, all who think that Mr. Warner's bank account is a bottomless pit. His legal fees fighting extradition has taken a toll on his finances. And the UNC, the only real interest they have in bringing him back is because to see what little juice they could squeeze from his popularity with the disenchanted UNC and to see how much of his money they could get to support their campaign. That's about it. Otherwise, to that. But even if they, God forbid, they were to get back into office in 2025, they're going to drop him like a hot potato the same way they did in 2013. Means to an end. Kamala just wants 5 more years as Prime Minister. Just 5. Her body will not allow her to serve for more than that. We see it all the time. All the time. But I don't know what it is with the sweet nectar, as Mr. Warner said, tell us at office. She just wants to go back there. Keith Khan had 10 years, and he be the only Prime Minister other than Eric Williams who could boast of that. I want 5 too. I want to make history. Well, Keith took that history from you. And so she wants one more opportunity to match him. One more to match him. Right? He mustn't get that accolade. And she's deprived of it because she loves to say she was the first female Attorney General and the first female Prime Minister and the first this and the first that. And she wants that prize to go down in history of all the Prime Ministers in this country to serve 2 terms, full terms. Mr. Manning, well, he did that. He didn't serve full because his first run at Prime Minister, he called an early election, 1995. And we know the outcome of that. So he didn't serve the full term. I think he still had another year or so. The only full term he served was from 2002 to 2007. And then, well, we know he called the election in 2010. That didn't go well either. So Dr. Rowley seems set to be the only other Prime Minister to have served consecutive terms, of course, and full terms at that. Pandey would have had such an opportunity when he won the election in 2000, but that his government fell apart. So that's the situation that they faced with, right? So, but in the interest of time, this issue with this Paria, Commission of Inquiry into Paria, right? And I'm seeing where, again, these shameless bastards that leads that other party, anything that they could pimp out in the hope of getting some kind of political mileage, they will jump on. Right? Interestingly, again, I've been following the Facebook page of the Douglaya. He has made no comment, no doubles and coffee, no politics commentary on the inquiry. He had plenty to say before, as I played for you 2 days ago, where he lied and said the Prime Minister indicated he was not going to publish the report. Not only has the report been laid in the Parliament, but we're now seeing it appears to be in the public domain, and I'm sure we know who did that. So Saddam Hussein, they didn't have the usual Sunday morning press conference on Sunday. Instead, they had a press conference at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Saddam Hussein alone, they didn't have any Monday night forum meeting last night because of some religious observance on the part of the Hindu community. And out of respect for that, they didn't have the meeting, or so they say. It's postponed to a date to be fixed. So they bring Saddam on 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon to talk about the report, this Commission of Inquiry report. I'm seeing on the front page of yesterday's Guardian, board must go, calls intensify against Paria fuel executives, Commission of Inquiry report highlights their incompetence since the UNC and the MSJ. OSHA also files 2 industrial court matters. It's interesting though, I think there were, 4 families who were directly impacted, or 5. The 4 divers who died and the gentleman who survived. 5 families impacted by this. But the only person who is front and center, as they say, is, what's her name, Vanessa Kusi? She's shedding the most amount of tears, right? She is the woman that the UNC recruited and is now one of their counselors. So she ran for office in the last local government election and she won her seat. You're not seeing any of the other family members, family members of the other 3 divers. You ain't seeing them front and center. They're not holding press conference and giving commentary to the media. They're sitting on the sidelines, right, and just watching what is going on. But Ms. Kusi front and center, she had plenty to say, but pretending as if she is not political, right? She would have benefited from, unfortunately, politically from her husband's death. As if that isn't shameless enough. She on a platform yesterday with Roger and them, and they stand up. Lock them up, no originality. Right? So they see that in the US with Donald Trump, and they decide to come and bring it here. All of them stand up and singing that tune. And then Roger comes to talk about who should face criminal sanction and so on, and who needs to be in handcuffs and all of that. Mr. Roger, the workers, the members of the OWTU should be calling for you to be in handcuffs, right? They should be calling for you to be in handcuffs. Now, I know Jenny could remind me, I can't remember the details of some incident that took place some years ago involving Mr. Roger, in which I think a worker of Trinma or something was injured or something to the likes. And if memory serves me correctly, Mr. Roger may have had some involvement in that. But I stand to be corrected. I'm sure when Jenny calls in, she'll probably enlighten us as to the particulars of that. But the workers, all the workers, not just Petrotrin and Trinma and whoever, because the OWTU represents a number of non-energy sector companies, the workers, who pay their dues religiously every month, right? For proper representation. And you led the charge in taking the people and their money to say you want to bid for the refinery. But the government offered it to you, and they offered it to you on very good terms, right? And you were not able to measure up. But you went and spent all the people money. I think now the OWTU is probably bankrupt, such that they had to, one of the buildings that they had to rent out to an low-cost supermarket or whatever to make a little money. But all of these union dues that people are paying, looking for representation, and the best opportunity that could have been offered to the OWTU and its membership, leave it to you and your executive to mess it up. That refinery should have been up and running today. right? Should have been up and running. But it's not. It was offered to you all. First, you say you want to keep all your refinery, whatnot, and then you had a change of heart. But the government gave you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to come good. We will work with you and help all you to put this thing because it could benefit the country. But at the end of the day, the government must ensure fuel security. Fuel security. All you come, you say you could get a loan for how much 100 million you offer, how much 100 million you wanted to buy the whole company. Government say we're not selling the whole company. We're selling the refinery. The non-core assets are not available. Relax yourself. You're taking chain up from Kamla and them. Kamla telling all you go big or go home. Right? She tell all you bid for the whole company. Things that we ain't offer for sale, she tell all you bid for it. And then when you bid for it now and we decide we're giving you the refinery alone, she make an about turn. Right? Wheel and come again. And want to know where you're getting the money from to buy the refinery. She didn't ask you where you are getting the money from to buy the whole company. She wasn't concerned about that. That's why. So when she tell you, hey, go and bid for the whole company, but not just the refinery alone, she wasn't concerned with where they will get this money from. She encouraged you to do that, bite off more than you could chew. She did that. She and her dishonest, conniving executive sat down in a boardroom and tell you and your executive go and bid for the whole company. But when you get the refinery, and the government said, we will give you the refinery, she come with 10 questions. Where do you get any money from? This and that, and all kind of bacana. Yeah? Showing how deceitful she is. And what is worse is that some of your membership are supporters and members of that party, seeing that their leader tried to deceive them and their well-being. And today, they're still supporting her and clapping her. Still keeping faith with her. If only we could have had loyalists like that in the PNM. We have some, but the rest, a lot of them, let me start saying the rest, a lot of them must take chain up. Easy chain up. Easy. So when I listen to Mr. Roger talking about who should be in handcuffs and who should make a jail, the membership of the OWTU should be calling for you to make a jail for mismanagement of their funds, mismanagement of their dues, Mr. Roger. Right? Somebody else, a better man, may have been able to close that deal. Government said to you, you say you could get a loan, you could come with your money, 500 million or 700 million or how much it is. Government say, here, we're not going to put you in that situation. To have to go and find all of this money one time. We ain't doing that. Right? Because we need to guarantee the country fuel security. So we're not going to accept your offer as is to put you in a situation where we give you the refinery, you start up operations, and then you find yourself deep in debt. And you're struggling to pay your debt. And in struggling to pay your debt, your monthly commitments and so on, you are unable to pay your workers. And every Monday morning, we have employees coming out to protest and march in front of the Petrotrin headquarters complaining, Roger must go and all of that. Right? Threatening again fuel security, because if the workers are not working because they're not getting paid or not getting paid on time, then who is refining the fuel to ensure that the trucks could come and take it and go to the gas stations and give the citizenry fuel, a reliable fuel supply? But not only that, remember we have other Caribbean countries depending on us importing fuel from Petrotrin, and therefore if you get it wrong, we in problems. So we need to make sure we get it right. The government says, here's what. Rather than come and give us this lump sum one time, 10 years, we will give you a 3-year moratorium. So for the first 3 years, you had to pay us nothing. Not one penny, not a dime, near a farthing. Take 3 years, work out all of your issues, deal with all of the teething problems. So whatever income, whatever money you generate in that first 3 years, use that to make sure everything running smooth in the company. And then for the next 7 years now, you will start to pay us monthly or not fortnightly, monthly or semi-annually or whatever it is. Right? You couldn't get a better deal than that. Don't burden yourself up front with no big set of loans to no foreign company. We will work it. And the money you will pay us back with the monies that you generate from operations, rather than you having to and even that you couldn't get right. Even that you couldn't get right. You come tell me about Credit Suisse and RBC, and you could get this and thing, but all you want the government to give you the refinery. So you could go and put up the refinery as collateral to get loan and all of that, because you needed money for operations, in addition to purchasing. You needed money for operations as well. And you all couldn't get it right. You're going all over the place, get whoever and who not to come and talk and say you could do this and do that. And at the end of the day, you failed. You failed the first time. The government gave you a second chance. You failed on the second time, right? Somebody else might have said, well, look, we see that the government willing to try with us because that first deal that they gave us was sweet. That is why the UNC was vexed. That is why they were vexed, right? Because they realized when they work out the logistics of the thing, this could work. The government telling them don't borrow no money, you don't have to pay no set of hundreds of millions of dollars in interest on loans. Pay us from the revenue generated from operations. And that interest that you would have paid on those loans, save that. Keep that in retained earnings. Use that to upgrade plant and machinery so that things could run smooth. Because once it is the refineries back up and running properly, we will no longer be importing fuel because we'll buy it from you all. Because if we're not buying it from you all, then you're not going to make any money. Because who else are you going to sell it to? Who else are you going to sell it to? Right? So the government needed to make sure they get their stories right so that when they stop importing fuel and decide that they're going to buy it from the refinery, as was the case before, that everything would be smooth and we don't have to worry and be sweating beads because we hear protests looming and they want to shut down the refinery because they ain't getting paid on time because Roger and them mishandling the thing. You couldn't even do that, sir. Look at how many years have passed since the last time you all attempted. What has happened since then? Have you sat down with anybody to say, well, let me see if we could make another go at it now? Let's see if we could work out something now. No. Instead, you choose to join with the UNC because Kamala said, put us back in office and we will reopen the refinery. But what money? State money? And go back into the same old thing again. So all we're talking, and you know, the only thing that's getting me upset with some of these people, and the UNC, their strategy is to keep their supporters in a perpetual state of ignorance. And not only their supporters, you have others as well who are intellectually lazy. And because you have an axe to grind with the government for whatever reason, what the UNC is saying, sounding good. So on the rare occasion when I listen to Captain Clueless and Professor Misinformation on that station in the afternoon, which I don't do often, and I hear people calling and talking and such trash and garbage and praising these men and saying, job well done, you're doing a good job, and calling people sycophants and who drinking Balize juice. You all need to check yourself. And then when they finish now, you have this next one, Wall Street, coming to double up on their foolishness. Double up on their foolishness. So when I hear them talking about Petrotrin was they call it, boy, a forex generator and a forex cash cow and so on. And we'll ask them how was Petrotrin earning foreign exchange? How? We're producing oil here, but not enough oil. Petrotrin was not producing enough oil to satisfy the throughput requirements for the refinery. So they needed to import oil at whatever the price of oil is. So we refine. Okay, we have refined products. The only way you could make money is if you sell these refined products, right? Either you're selling oil as is, or you're selling refined product. We weren't generating enough oil locally for Petrotrin to be able to refine. So we had to import, right? Ask them the basics. So how are we earning the foreign exchange? Because if we buy the oil, we had to get US dollars to buy the oil, right? Because, yeah, we buying it from the US and elsewhere, and they don't take TT dollars. So we had to get US dollars to pay for the oil. So they don't understand. If you ask them that simple concept, you'll get and they will start to hear the Jeopardy theme song. So of course we used to sell refined product to other Caribbean countries, but then you have other products that would come out of what Petrotrin was refining downstream and so on, and we used to make money from that. But it came to the point where we were importing 100,000 barrels of oil per day. 100,000 barrels of oil per day that had to be paid for in US dollars. Where the US was coming from to buy this 100,000 barrels of oil per day? Where it was coming from? Or were we paying in pesos? Were we paying in bolivares? Were we paying on what? Spit? So millions and tens of millions of US dollars had to be going out to buy the oil. The oil comes in, we refine, we sell on the domestic market, we sell to other Caribbean countries, a few of them, for buying from us and whatever other products would come out of that, right? And again, I make the point. So when I hear people talking about, yeah, but Petrotrin was refining and the Petrotrin was oil, and people need to understand, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, if a barrel of oil is $100, the government not getting $100. The government gets taxes and royalties, right? Taxes and royalties on that oil. If you're not producing enough oil domestically to satisfy your demands in your refinery, you have to be bringing in oil, costing money, US dollars. So when I hear them talking about Rowley, and them, they're so stupid. They closed down the refinery and now they had to be importing fuel. And all that US, they had to be going out of the country to import fuel when we should have been making it right here and making the US. We importing fuel, we paying for US dollars, paying with US dollars. We were importing oil to refine. The same situation, the same scenario. In both instances, we were importing oil to refine under Petrotrin. Now we importing the fuel. So it comes here, bunker. It costing us less now because we don't have to pay to maintain the refinery. We don't have to pay salaries and all of these different things. So all of these overheads that were involved in running the refinery, the government no longer has. So it's now your import, and depending on price of oil, the price of fuel, which varies on a daily basis, and where you're getting it from, sometimes it might be a little more expensive, sometimes it might be cheaper. You're operating on the spot market to see where you could get it for the best price, and you bring it. Minus all of the overheads. But don't tell them that. Because as far as they're concerned, Petrotrin was making an umpteen amount of US dollars. We're still selling fuel, because when we bring in fuel here, it's not just for Trinidad and Tobago. It's not just for the domestic market. We're still selling to some of the other Caribbean countries who used to buy from Petrotrin. So we're still making foreign exchange. But now it brings us to Paria. And that is what Paria does. Paria brings in the fuel. Right? So Paria ensures fuel security. Paria's responsibility is to ensure that anytime you go to the gas station, you're not meeting long lines because we don't have fuel, as we would have seen in Venezuela at one time. Venezuela, which has all the oil, all the gas, and at one point in time, we saw what was taking place there, right? So Paria is extremely important to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. Paria ensures that when you go to the gas station, you could get gas. We have these clowns coming to tell you, fire the whole board of Paria, fire the whole board and the executive management. So people who had absolutely nothing to do with that whole unfortunate incident, they want to tell you fire them. Get rid of all of them. Just send them an email blast and tell all of them you're fired. Go home. That's it. Okay? So you do that and you send notice to all of the board members you have been relieved. And then the executive management. Remember, the executive management working day to day. The board is just there technically as a figurehead. So they create policy and so on, and it's for the executive management to carry out to run the company. And you have the MSG and the UNC saying, fire all of them. Okay, we fire the board. We fire the executive management. How is the company running? How is the company going to run? Who is going to give direction as to how the company is going to run? Because if you fire everybody today, it is not like you could hire new people tomorrow to come and replace these people that you have fired. So should we add common sense, make before book. So okay, the government should take the advice. All right, we're going to fire the board tomorrow, and we're going to fire all executive management who were employed with Paria at the time of this tragedy. Right, so everybody fired and gone. Now what? Mr. Roger, what should we do now? Would you like to run the company, Mr. Roger? Mrs. Posad-Bissessar, would you like to run the company? Do you have expertise in managing an entity like Paria? Do you have some names you would like to suggest to us of people that we could hire? And since we're desperate, well, because we have no management, so people come in to work at the lower levels and they have no management to report to. But the company is supposed to run. Who ordering the fuel, the next batch of fuel to come into the country to ensure that we have fuel to put in the car? Who doing that? Who paying for it? Who authorizing it? Who is going to authorize it? All of the bank accounts that they have now, Paria has now, is management on these things. So they are authorized to sign. When you fire everybody carte blanche one time, who signing check? How employees getting paid? Who authorizing salaries? Who doing that? Because the bank works with whose signature we have on the system for this company. So you can't just say, well, here we fire everybody. I mean, bring in new people tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to pay salaries. But who's that? We don't know them. Did our board approve this? Did the board? Where's the board minute that says this person is authorized to sign on behalf of Paria? Who doing that? So how that happening? You have a shipment of fuel coming in. We have to pay for it. Who authorizing the payment? But it's smart. Fire everybody because that's making sense. And fire everybody. And then what? And all of these people that all they want to fire because all about revenge. And it's Paria fault. I am reading, we'll get more into that on another day. I am reading the snippets of this inquiry. And I'm seeing the same perceived bias that we would have seen based on how Commissioner Lynch was relating with some of the employees of Paria when they were under cross-examination. I'm not surprised by some of what I'm seeing so far coming out of this inquiry. But everybody talking about Paria and fire Paria and send home the whole board and executive management of Paria. But realize the UNC ain't talking about LMCS. I was listening to Saddam Hussein, a little snippet of his press conference on Sunday. And I noticed he talking about the section or the portion of the recommendations of the report in which they recommended that Paria be charged for corporate manslaughter. But he most he made sure he mentioned the part that talks about such recommendations are not made for LMCS. So blame Paria, penalize Paria, because they say Paria didn't want to carry out the rescue because it was too risky. But let us not blame LMCS, the company that caused the accident. So let us focus on the outcomes of the accident, not what caused it. Let us not focus on the company who didn't put proper things in place. Let us not focus on the company who, based on the testimony that came out of the inquiry, the accident took place because they tried a shortcut. They did not follow proper procedure. And the man who was in charge of the operations that day that resulted in the accident from LMCS is a supervisor who had been demoted sometime before for similar actions, right? He had been demoted before. And they come based on what we would have heard. And some shortcut took place that resulted in the Delta P that caused these men to be sucked into the pipe. But let us not penalize them. No. The people who caused the accident, forget that. Let us focus on the fact that Paria prevented an effort to rescue the men who should not have been in the pipeline in the first place, had it not been for the negligence of the company that was contracted by Paria to do the work. Now, if Paria was aware that they were engaging in underhanded things, shortcut business, right? They would have never given them the job. Somebody else would have get the job. Somebody else more responsible. Another company. First of all, these men didn't even have, based on what they were not trained to do the type of diving that they were going to do, right? They were more trained to be scuba divers than what was required. So all of these shortcomings in terms of the equipment that they had and all of these different things. Imagine when they first attempted to rescue the men, they had a professional diver, one of few in the world who was there. And he testified that he was sitting at the rim of the pipe, ready to go down. He was ready to go down and attempt the rescue. But the man who was supposed to be supporting him was unhinged because I think his father was down in the pipe. And he's saying, this man who I'm supposed to put in whose hands I'm supposed to put my life, to depend on him to be able to guide my line and so on. He is an emotional wreck. But so I am not comfortable to go down in this pipe to try and rescue these men when I could end up being a casualty just like them. And so under those circumstances, he decided, you know what? I'm waiting for my brother to come. When my brother come here, then we go to you. See, I'm not taking that chance with him. All of these things that they don't talk about, right? So it's not that a rescue was not attempted. At the point in time, The circumstance did not permit. And when eventually an assessment was done, they're saying, look, we don't know what the situation is. We have 4 men down there. We don't want to make it 5 or 8 or 10 men dying in this pipeline. And time was of the essence. I commiserate with the family. It is unfortunate what happened. But this was an accident that should not have happened because of negligence on the part of the company that was contracted to do the work, because they decided to do a shortcut that resulted in that. We need to focus on that aspect of it, but they didn't want to focus on the upstream, only focus on the downstream. Why? Because the man who owned the company, right, that was responsible for the accident happening is UNC. His wife was, I think, the head or the chairman or something of the UNC Women's League or something like that, right? So how we could chastise him? That's one of we own. For all you know, he could probably be one of the financiers. We depending on him for a little kakara come next election. So we can't focus on him. So you know what? To avoid public scrutiny from that aspect, public scrutiny of the report to say, well, what fault has been placed on LMCS and what has been recommended in terms of sanctions against LMCS to ensure that this doesn't happen again, that they don't get another job somewhere and decide to take a shortcut and problems. If they had followed proper procedure on that day, that would not happen. But Saddam ain't talking about that. Kamla ain't talking about that. Roger ain't talking about that. No, he want the executives of Paria in handcuffs, but allow the owner and management of LMCS to go free. Absolve them of the wrongdoing that resulted in the accident in the first place. We ain't talking that. But you have Prakash Ramada coming to talk now, give the family members $5 million. Why 5 million? Why not get them 20? Why not 100 million US, Prakash? Why 5? Only 5? How you keep about that figure? If these men had continued to work up until the point of their retirement, would they have earned $5 million? Some of these men, a couple of them, I think at least one of them was in his 50s. So he was close to retirement, right? So you trying to tell us he was earning so much money on a monthly basis that had he not died and had he worked until his retirement, he would have earned $5 million? Prakash? That's what you're trying to tell us? And then you have people, the supporters, saying only 5. They should get at least 20 million. Based on what? Based on what? Just pull a figure out of a hat, right? Because, okay, they died and therefore. They say you can't put a price tag on life. That is true. But from an economic standpoint, you can. You simply calculate what was the salary that these men were working for on a monthly basis. Multiply it by 12, you get the annual salary. How many years to retirement? Right? In the financial services sector, we call that the human life value. That's the value that your employer puts on you. That's the salary that you earn, your employer says this is what you are worth. When you multiply that by 12 and the number of years to retirement, that is what your total value, your earning capacity. So any of these men, would they have earned $5 million up until the point of their retirement? And who says they were going to stay with LMCS anyway? So why are you not calling and say, well, okay, if you want to say for the government should pay $5 million, well, I think LMCS should be made to pay a similar amount to all of the families for the shortcut that they took. Whatever amount you want Paria to pay, let LMCS match it. So you say $5 million from Paria, LMCS need to pay $5 million too. So let them get $10 million. But LMCS cannot be allowed to walk away scot-free from this whole incident because of the role that they play. And it is on record that you had a supervisor who had been previously demoted, but yet still you had him there, leading the charge. But no talk about that. And the UNC will not speak about that. That is the dishonesty that I can't take with these people. The dishonesty to the hilt. So because the company, in some way, affiliated with your party, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Paria and only read the portions of the report that speaks about Paria and Paria and Paria and commercial. And now they vex with the DPP because the DPP says, the same DPP who they were defending the other day, right? And Rowley trying to get rid of the DPP and whatnot. Now they come in to say the DPP needs to act. The DPP needs to act. And he can act according to Saddam. So contrary to what the DPP saying, Saddam telling us, no, so he could. He could bring charges. So if he doesn't bring charges, are we to expect in the coming weeks, start on the Monday Night Forum, we're going to hear them criticizing the DPP? The same DPP whose defense they ran through just the other day when they said Dr. Rowley was trying to oust him and Dr. Rowley attacking the DPP. So the other day they were his friend. Today, not so much. Not so much. They're not liking him, they're feeling him too much now because they need him to bring some charges and lock up some people. And let us go to the extreme. Let us bypass not just the board, but let us take it further because, hey, this is a state enterprise. And therefore, the government is ultimately responsible for state enterprises. So Kamala calling for Stuart Chung to be fired. And soon enough, she might call for Mr. Imbert as corporation sold for him to be fired too. Nothing new. Nothing new. But when again, and I repeat, 10 million US went missing from the bank account of the National Energy Corporation when she was Prime Minister. And the country only found out about it 4 years after it happened. For 4 years, they kept that secret. For 4 years, that was kept under wraps. The country was not aware of that incident. And we only found out because somebody sent something in Dr. Rowley's mailbox. And when he raised the question, they were forced to admit, yes, it did happen. Yes, this 10 million US dollars, almost 70 million TT dollars went missing from the bank account of the NEC, right? Stolen. Say going to Guyana for what it was, hot dog and ketchup. And the man who was at the helm of both institutions, First Citizens Bank and the NEC, you all didn't fire him. You all didn't call for the firing of the management and the board of First Citizens Bank at the time. You all didn't call for that. No. What did you do? You paid the man almost $11 million or 11.1 million according to the Sunshine newspaper. 10 point something based on the Guardian report. You paid him all of this money and made him Minister of Finance. Yes. So he couldn't avoid $10 million US going missing or being stolen from the bank account of a company which he was the chairman of. And the money was held in an institution of which he was the chief executive officer. No, we didn't say fire him. We didn't say fire the board. We didn't say fire the supervisor or the manager of the branch or these things. No, we didn't say that. What did we say? Let us promote the CEO of the bank and the chairman of the company and give him a sweet parting gift, a golden, not even a golden, a platinum handshake of millions of dollars, and let us make him a Minister of Finance so he could continue to run other state companies, right? And preside over other state companies in the same way he presided over these two state entities that saw this money go missing, that kept it secret from the public. The shareholders of FCB, you, the taxpayers, you, the citizen, that is your bank, formed by the People's National Movement. Let me remind all of that. First Citizens was a product of the People's National Movement, one of the most successful banks in this country today. Product of the PNM. So that's your bank, right? Your bank. What did they? What did they tell you? Let us promote it. Yeah, he costs all the money, but to hell with that. Let me give him some more for that. But the board of Paria must go. The executive management of Paria must go in this incident because somebody, a company that is linked to them, decided to engage. That is where the manslaughter is. Why are we not calling for criminal proceedings to be instituted against whoever was the management team on the ground that day from that company that made the decision to engage in a shortcut that resulted in the accident happening in the first place? That gave the instructions to engage in the activity that caused the Delta P. Why are we not calling for manslaughter? That person or persons had a direct hand in these men ending up in the pipeline in their lives. When we read the type of injuries that they would have sustained at the time, even if they were rescued, it is quite likely that some of these men may not have even survived had they gotten them, rescued them and gotten them out of the pipeline. Based on the angle where we say man, foot break, leg break, all kind of thing. Even if they came, who know if ribs were punctured, if ribs were broken, you try to pull them out, you puncture the lung, all of these things. Nobody knows if they would have survived even if they were rescued. But the commission didn't focus on that. Commission didn't focus on that. And all we know is these men lost their lives because Paria gave instructions not to carry out the rescue. Forced out of concern that in attempting this never before attempted rescue, we could end up having more persons in this pipeline. We don't know if the Delta P still exists. We don't know if there's something that is just plugging it. And if we go and attempt this rescue and it's unplugged and it sucked more people or sucked them further into the pipeline or sucked more people into the pipeline, and we have more issues to deal with. Now, I agree. Somehow, the family should get some level of compensation. But if compensation is to come, it must come from both companies. Both of them are culpable in this instance. But not to the extent, I am saying on Paria's side, not to the extent that the UNC is trying to prosecute here, because for them it's about political mileage. So when you see Ms. Kusi, who is so distraught and it's so difficult now, and we can't make ends meet, and she need money to buy food for the children and to send the children to school, and she can't pay her bills, but you're collecting a salary as a counselor. You're drawing a salary before. Were you working before when your husband was alive? Or were you a housewife? You are earning a salary now. And soon enough, once the rest of the local government reform bill is proclaimed, and you're deemed a full-time counselor, your salary is going to increase. So you'll be getting even more money. But if you see her dress up yesterday, makeup on point, but you're suffering. You didn't look like somebody suffering, like to me. Sit down right next to Roger. All this at mama guy and propaganda. Yeah? Well, the few clips I see, I didn't see her shedding any tears, but I'm sure that probably was part of the whole production yesterday. Every time the media only went to her, nobody else. So like the other three families, they don't exist. They're invisible. No, you ain't hearing them talking now. They're not saying, but you see, she up front and center have plenty to say. Is she the voice of the others as well? They see that's what they like. But they want things to change, you know. But it must change at Paria. But it mustn't change at LMCS. So allow LMCS now to continue how they operating, not ensuring that the quality of divers that they provide, that these people are qualified to do the work. No. Let them continue doing what they're doing, and let us put the spotlight on Paria, and Paria must pay because it's the state and the state have money. And that's what they're about. Always the state must dip in the pocket to pay. Taxpayers' money. They're so concerned about taxpayers' money, but oh boy. Before I open the lines, I see it's done 8 o'clock already. The next thing I see she talking about, Prasad Bisesa, that is, talking about they supported more than 35 pieces of legislation, crime-fighting legislation, and that Hines must go and Rowley must go and all of that. And they give you a breakdown of how many people was killed since Hines became Minister of National Security and so on. I would like to see a comparison, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, of how many persons were killed under the reign of the 5 ministers of national security that you had. You needed 5 and still couldn't get it right. Give us a breakdown. How many people died, were murdered while Gary Griffith was Minister of National Security? How many people died while John Sandy were murdered while John Sandy was Minister of National Security? When Jack Warner, give us the breakdown now. Please, give us that breakdown. Over the 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days that you were Prime Minister, give us the breakdown. Let us do a comparison. Because there's some people in that party would have you believe that between 2010 to 2015, we didn't have any murders. That's what they would have you believe. But coming to talk about you all supported at least 35 pieces of crime-fighting legislation in the parliament, and that you voted for it with the government. But the most critical, right, the most crucial pieces of legislation, you did not support. The anti-gang legislation, which Gary Griffith told us was responsible in 2020 for a reduction in murders of 115. I want you to understand the significance, because I don't have time to talk too much on Gary this morning, save and except for the fact that at the press conference, for those of you who care to listen to it tonight, we could go ahead and do that. At that press conference, he made mention that the state of emergency that they had in 2011, from August to November, December, thereabouts, they were able to save 48 lives. He said because at the point in time when the state of emergency was implemented, there were 254 murders up to that point. And based on their calculation and their projections, we would have ended the year over 400 and something murders, but it ended up at 350 something or so. So they would have saved 48 lives. So as a result of the state of emergency, so they couldn't. So he's telling you, the 254 is what it was at when the state of emergency came into play. And then they went on to 350 something or 352 or something like that. So they couldn't save almost 100 lives. Those 100, they couldn't save them, but they saved 48. How Gary Griffith has come up with these things, it amazes me. So they did predict their projections, right? That's what he said, that the trajectory. So it's not like it wasn't going to change. We've seen in the recent past where later on in the year, when these fellas feel that they need to make up quota, all of a sudden the killing spree increases. So the number of murders happening on a weekly basis just starts to go up. But he would have us believe that wasn't going to happen in 2011, right? So they're saying, well, okay, the average murders is 30 for the month or 40 for the month, as the case may be. So we expect that to continue till the rest of the year. And they were able to save 48 lives using the state of emergency. 48. But the anti-gang legislation, he tells us, when he was commissioner of police, was able to save 115 lives. 115 less murders as a result of the anti-gang legislation. Last I checked, 115 is more than 48. But you know, under them, less is more. Less is more. So you're advocating, yes, the state of emergency worked in 2011 and think why? Because you, the media have now, the media shine all here, showing there is discord between you and Kamala with respect to your views on whether or not a state of emergency should be called now. And since he focuses on that and you realize, you're coming out to try and backpedal to defend what she's saying. I said, well, you know what she's saying, that's too wrong, you know, maybe, and right. This is the same Gary Griffith who told us that in 2011, the only time the anti-gang legislation was ever abused was in 2011 to lock up people without evidence as he gives me. He said that. And I have the newspaper article. So in case you want to sue, because I see you want to sue Mr. Hines, you send Hines a pre-action protocol letter for an interview that Mr. Hines did, in which he says certain things were said about him, even though Hines didn't call his name. He is saying that based on what was said, the inference could be made that he is the one Hines referring to. Interestingly enough, that same interview was aired on TTT on Sunday night, right? So you issue pre-action protocol letter, and the intention of the pre-action protocol letter is to get Hines up or whatever it is. But you also threaten anybody else who repeats what Hines said or who shares that production, that they too could get caught up in the web. But it was broadcast on Sunday night, that interview, on a production called Delving Deeper on TTT on Sunday night. I want to know if you're going to send a pre-action protocol letter to TTT for replaying that video on Sunday night. And subsequent to that, you know, sometimes idiocy knows no bounds. You suing Hines for comments he made at that interview, in that video. But then you create a video with snippets of that same interview that you're suing Hines for and post it on your Facebook page. Right? So you suing Hines Katinga, you're saying whatever, and irreparable damage to your reputation. But then you take a clip from the interview and create a video and put it on your Facebook page for it to be shared. So more people could now hear what Hines says. So people who didn't hear what Mr. Hines said before, people who may never have seen the interview, right? You have now created a platform for the piece of this interview where he says certain things to now be, so people will share and share and share. So more people will see. But you saying your reputation was damaged and you're suing Hines for that. That's not making no sense to me. You shouldn't want that to be broadcast anyhow. But you gonna make us, it's on his Facebook page. That making any sense? Tell me that making any sense. It's not. So you now have created a way for this thing to spread even further and wider. You have drawn attention to this thing that a lot of people didn't see or didn't even pay mind to. Because I wasn't even aware of it. It's only when I read, because I was going flipping channels on Sunday night and I happened to see part of the clip. But there were other persons interviewed, Dr. Marlene Atz. They had people like, oh gosh, this guy, forgive me, can't remember his name now, former PNM Mayor of Arima. Forgive me, sir, the name slips me at the moment. And some others. But it was only when I read about this lawsuit and reference was made to this interview, then I realized, oh, that is what that was on Sunday night. I didn't look at the whole thing. So he's suing Hines for that. But if I'm now curious, I could go on your Facebook page and pull up and see a piece of that interview where you have posted things that you said offended you and has damaged your reputation. And you have put it out there for more people to be able to access it to create what further damage to your reputation. Mr. Hines needs to take a copy of that video that Mr. Griffith has on his Facebook page and use that in his defense. So you are so aggrieved, but yet still you post it up on your Facebook page for the world to see, for everybody to share it because you are Mr. Popular. That making sense? Now somebody starts a rumor on me and I am so aggrieved and I decide to sue them for libel, defamation, right? And then I decide I'm going to type up exactly what the person said and I'm going to share it, send out emails to everybody. I'm going to write it up on a piece of Bristol board and post it up by every shop or every grocery in the neighborhood so all can read what this person said about me. But I'm so aggrieved. When you should be trying to keep it on the down low, you have created a platform for everybody to see and you're suing. And that making sense to him. But coming back to his compatriot, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, who want to say they supported 35 pieces of more than 35 pieces of legislation aimed at crime fighting. But the two most important, anti-gang and bail amendment, you did not support. That is on record. You did not support it. Legislation which Gary told us played us the most significant, out of all the 35 pieces and more that you supported, did not have the same impact on crime reduction as did the anti-gang legislation and the bail amendment, as Gary Griffith told us when he was Commissioner of Police based on statistics in front of him. But the 35 or so pieces that you supported, whatever impact it may have had in reducing crime, you would have then gone to the court and have the court take certain actions which would reduce the efficacy of those pieces of legislation. So you went to the court and had the court overturn murder as a non-bailable offense. So even if we lock up people for murder, they could get out on bail. So the deterrent of incarceration no longer exists. So then what's the point of those other 35 pieces of legislation that you're looking? We can't lock up nobody. We could charge you, but we can't lock you up. We cannot incarcerate you until your case is called. Because thanks to the UNC, they have the considered view that everybody is entitled to apply for bail. And we know their words very good when it comes to the courthouse, because they're in the courthouse more than anything else. If it is you're a damn crook, you're a criminal, and you're looking for a lawyer, look to the house of the rising sun. They're waiting there, licking their chops, to use Munilal where they're salivating to represent you. Salivating to represent you. More often than not, when you see somebody charged for murder or they get bail, when you read the list and name who the attorneys were, there's one camp they're coming from. But when it is that you go to the court and do these things, it defeats the purpose of the legislation. So what's the point? We bring in laws to criminalize certain activities, and when people are caught, they're charged, but that's about it. They get bail and they're free to continue doing whatever it is that they were doing because the justice system in the country is such that these cases take forever. Well, thank God the government was able to remove the preliminary inquiry. So based on what currently obtains, the matters could go straight to the assizes and be dealt with expeditiously. No more 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 years with matters pending preliminary inquiry only getting put off and put off and put off. Perhaps if it is that was in place before, Annan Ramlogan might have been behind bars now. Instead, this witness tampering case has been going on for what? Since 2015 he was fired. We're in 2024. 9 years. 9 years now. That matter still is to be tried. Still to be tried. Prison gate. Gary told us he closing all gates before the general election of 2020, but like he forget that gate. He don't know where that gate was. In fact, the hinges on that gate have now rusted and the gate fall down. So that's why it is an open sepulchre. 2014, October 2014, Senior Superintendent Dinoon, who was the lead man on that case, told us the investigation is near to a close. The only persons left to be interviewed is Mr. Ramlogan and Mr. Debedine. 2014, October. We are in January of 2024. We are almost 10 years later. 10 years later. After we were told the investigation is near to a close. Here we are 10 years later. We have no idea what is the status of that investigation. None whatsoever. 10 years. 2 men. The DPP, when it was first discovered, made the point. The man who used to give instructions to charge said, just taking a cursory glance of what was referenced by the master of the court, I am of the unflinching view that a criminal act may have taken place here. He didn't need to see the police report. He didn't need to get a file from the police to peruse to make a decision. Just based on the preliminary evidence that was before him, right, which alerted the master of the court to what was taking place, he was ready to charge them. without a police investigation. He felt that he had sufficient evidence in front of him to make a prima facie case to charge their backside and lock them up. But 10 years later, in the face of that evidence, 10 years later, in the face of one of the attorneys, Debbie Dean, having written a letter to the court confessing to what he did, that matter is still under investigation. But they wouldn't file a freedom of information request to find out what is the status of that. No, they ain't gonna do that. But they want to know what's the status of the Integrity Commission investigation into Dr. Rowley townhouse in Inez Gate. That's what they want, but they don't want to know what's going on with this investigation 10 years now in the public interest, because their people have been fingered. Their people fingered, right? Imagine man dead, and the attorney don't know the man dead, but the man's judgment has been appealed, signed by a dead man, you know. But we know they're good for necromancy. They know to go in the political cemetery and dig up corpses. So apparently they went and did the same thing and get Mr. Guillaume. Hey, Merrick, morning. Yeah, come, we just come here to sign this thing here. Yeah, give me a skeleton. Sign there for me, right? So documents going up to appeal the case. Man, they don't know how his signature arrived on that. We did a seance. Yeah, y'all had a seance. You went down Maruga. You invoke the spirit of Mother Knox. And you get a signature. But these men still practice it. In any other jurisdiction, they would have been disbarred a long time. But in Trinidad, you're free to continue to practice and make yourself available for public office. 7701763. Sometimes when I hear them say Trinidad is not a real place, I don't like it. I don't like the saying, you know, but it is what it is. So let me just get this thing here. One second, Jen. Right, we're good to go then. Jenny. Hello?
Hello? Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm morning to you, morning to all those locked out. The incident that you inquiring about with Roger, Kamla Prasad Desai, remember when she was in office and he was going to have a big march, the mother of all marches? Right, she would have stood in Parliament that day and forced call on him. And what she would have spoken about is an incident that happened in 1999, September, where an accident occurred with one worker, Irvin Tulsi, where he was in a cooler box. They were fixing a compressor.
Right.
And the incident happened where he could have been killed. He damaged his ankle and his foot. Roger was the foreman on that day when the incident happened.
Right.
So when the head of the compressor unit, Sylvatius Johnson, asked Tulsi for a statement, Tulsi submitted the statement.
Right.
However, it was when an investigating committee was set up, it was found that members of the crew initially they were conspiring to conceal the accident. And Roger and OWTU, they said was pressuring workers to withhold the truth. He paid the man, they say, $300 to not say anything. And coming out of that, Trinma, because as the company which was working, they fired him on the grounds of negligence,
right,
failure to follow company's procedure, giving misleading and false information to the management at Trinma and also the investigating committee. And that's how we ended up, I think, full-time into OWTU. Right? So that's Roger. He on a stage talking about lock them up. He could have get locked up in 1999 for concealing a worker's injury, and he was the foreman at the time. But let's forget. That situation with Paria and the diving company, and I totally agree, both parties should be held liable. But nobody's speaking about the diving company. And I just want to say this quickly. While I'm trained in industrial relations and not health and safety, because we have to know all the different acts, because we have to use different laws to treat grievances, I'm very familiar with Part 2 General Duties of the Occupational Safety and Health Act 2004, where Section 6.1 says, it shall be the duty of every employer to ensure so far as reasonably practicable the safety, health, and welfare at work of all employees, right?
Yes.
Then they have Section 2 and different subsection. But when you look at subsection the F, is it F? No, it's C. Yes, C it is. 2C, it says, the provision of adequate and suitable protective clothing or devices of an approved standard to employees who is in course of employment are likely to be exposed to risk of head, eye, air, hand, or foot injury from air contaminant or any bodily injury, and the provision of adequate instruction in the use of such protective clothing or devices. And it goes on to tell you about the training of people and they should be exposed to what and what not exposed to. Now, as far as we know, that diving company had scuba divers. They didn't have commercial divers. And the accident that occurred was one that commercial divers are trained to deal with. So it shows that that company sent persons who are untrained with the improper or the wrong equipment to do our work, to do our job. So they cannot escape the Health and Safety Act. I guess that is why the Health and Safety Department is putting forward some cases or something to that effect, because there were breaches in the Act. So nobody cannot just put it on PARI alone.
Right.
This diving company was hired to do a job. PARI may not have due diligence in seeing that this company had the proper equipment. However, the company would have said they could have done the job, leading PARI, I guess they believe they could do the job, and they weren't really equipped to do the job. So PARI and the diving company has to take responsibility for what they have. So when they talk about lock up PARI, we say lock up the diving company also. Right? That's just my 2 cents of the issue. But again, it is right there in the Health and Safety Act. Anybody can read it, Part 2, under general duties. So I don't know if PARI didn't know. I don't know if the diving company didn't know. But they were clearly in breach of the Act. So we can't just talk about PARI. We have to talk about the diving company too.
Yeah.
You have a blessed one.
Thank you, John. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Tom darling. How are you?
I am good.
I want to find out something. Is G-String Sissy iTunes going to sue himself? If you tell me something in a private email or WhatsApp that is against me and I spread it, can I sue myself too? Because he spread it. You know, he behaving like insane shit. I'm a pro of last year. The same thing in paid insurance to Proco that we're doing. Have they grown up? They act so permanently immature. And if PNM is not all that, why all them joining the free to make PNM down? You stand alone. PNM have never and will never, ever, ever join a party to win. You have none at us. You have hope or hopeless or dopeless. You have the Duns. You had MSG to join the BPNM. And to all that, if all that, you stand alone, know your worth, know your power. They're like, you know, the dark ages where there was lights.
Yes.
They are candles in the rain with no light. I don't understand how anybody don't stop, listen, and sing. It's all the lies they repeat, recycle, dig up the coffin, did like Saul, and wake up the prophet. And prophet, hear this now. You feel about winter day? Wait there, one boy. They got coffins, right?
Yes.
Talk about the PNM over your house. But when you drag a coffin in the road, it's phobia. Right? They have an issue with the red building. When those in yellow go to the beach and plant flags and watch to a Kali Puja, that is phobia. Remember a couple years ago, 7 or 8 fishermen that died in the water? You know why, Dominic? Because they went to the water to tell African people it came back to bite them. Before you open your mouth, make sure you are a virgin. Make sure you're clean. Because they were clean as a flood of 2018. They are hypocrites of the highest calling from their voice. They are learned professional liars. They lie from womb to tomb. And people hear me well. Know your words. Investigate. I take these programs for purpose, Dominic. So I go back and listen and I take notes. Some things I miss, I go back again. UNC is a cult of stupid people. UNC is Tobago, the Jim Jones of Guyana. They do not think. Filth is shoved down the throat. The yum 5-star meal. There's no perfect party, okay? But we in the PNM know how to think. We stop, we listen, investigate, we take notes. UNC want to be in power at any cost. And Jack Warner, get passport and go winner. You want to be relevant. You have charges over your head of corruption. You have no morality to talk about anybody. And Michaela, if you have sense, and I pray God you do not listen to the bag of lies Carmen would tell you. You are grieving, take time to grieve, take time to heal. But sister, run. Michaela, run. Like run, Forrest, run. Carmen wants to be in power at rather than your father's death. Not out of love for him, but she wants all the hard halls of power. It's not love. She wants to be in a Senate rocking chair, being PM. People, Julian John Widmer and Rodney Charles and Naked, you're a token furry. Because the same thing you are Negroes. She doesn't value you. She values what you can bring to the party. You are being used by Kamla. Some have a good day. Be blessed, my darling. Bye-bye later.
Thank you. Brian, morning. Hello? Brian.
Dominic, morning.
Morning, sir.
How are you going?
I am good, man.
All right. I don't want to be long, but you see, this is near and dear to me.
Yes.
So I want to tell you, lady, give us some time, please, now. Dominic is amazing that all the gremlins come out so immediately after the report was laid in Parliament. David Abdullah, Roger, what about the UNC? You understand? They come out quick, because you know why? They want barrier to pay. Because all of them have their own axe to grind. Roger losing $100 of 7,000 people every month. So he have an axe to grind with Petrotrin and the government. So I understand Roger. But you see, Jenny remind us about incident in 1999 with Roger. But in 1985-86, there was an incident where 14 men died in that same area. You understand? When there was a fire in that particular area when Aaron McLeod was the President General. And if anything, nobody didn't learn anything from that. In order to perk up the same thing they're asking for today about rules and regulations and so on. Nobody didn't learn anything. 14 men died. 14 company men died. How come we shouldn't talk about that and Aaron McLeod? Huh? They don't talk about that at all. 14 men died. Good. And things happen in the company. But you see, when LMCS was employed for all these years, did anybody question, even before Paria, because they were employed under Petrotrin as well, did anybody question their certifications and so on to ensure that they were industrial divers to do the work that they were doing all these years? Where was Roger? They were there. The union was there. Did they ever question LMCS to say, Petrotrin, listen, we are not happy with this company bringing people who are not certified to do the type of work that you all want them to do? Where was the OWTU? But today, all of a sudden, them know better, them know everything. I know it's hurtful about this, Dominic. I understand. I know, let me say this. There should be compensation, in my view, because people have died. Families have been affected. And there should be compensation. Who pays? That is not for me, but somebody has to pay. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Quantum is up to whoever decides. I have no problem with that. Money should be, and as a matter of fact, it should be paid as quickly as possible because these are families. But to see the hypocrisy, Dominic, of some people is what is hurting me. Because this same lady now is a counselor under the UNC because Kamala went to hook she up and give she a work. She getting paid. I don't know if it's the same lady who indicated that when she was suffering and she went to LMCS boss because she wanted money for medical issues and she wanted $25,000. The LMCS boss told her, well, you're going to pay me back. But he was supposed to be paying workmen's compensation. Nobody don't talk about that. Was they paid workmen's compensation? People are talking about these things. Was they insured? What is been insured? But Abdullah, who talking about, oh, there's information there. He can't specify what information. They're not talking about who pulled the blank to create the vortex, the Delta P, that had those men sucked into the pipe, a 30-inch diameter pipe, that you have no maneuverability. But they want Colin Piper to go to jail because the reason is that the commissioner gave is because he failed to send somebody down to rescue them. That's the reason. Suppose that he had sent somebody and that person had died as well. What were we going to say today? Paria had to make a call. This is something novel, never experienced before. In a 30-inch, I want people to measure the shoulder to shoulder and tell me what is the length. And picture yourself going down there foot first or head first. How were you coming back up? On a line, you depended upon somebody who was nervous to pull you back up with somebody down there. And on top of that, the equipment that got stuck in the pipe could not have come out as easily as people were talking. So if they had gone down there, let's say management had sent somebody down there to do a rescue, and they got stuck. Tell me what was the next course of action? You see, we could say one thing today and talk, but a decision had to be made. Do I send some? Put yourself in Colin Piper's place. Do I send somebody else down there, another human being down there, not knowing exactly what will happen? Explain that to me. And I want to get an answer from whoever else with a call and say, yes, I would have sent him. And face the consequences after. We don't know what was the situation in a black 30-inch diameter oil and water pipeline with little pockets of air. What were you going to do? And this is not a little piece of pipeline that is just 10 feet down. It was 60 feet vertical, and then you didn't know exactly where the men were. So you had to go along the bed of the sea to make this rescue and move equipment out of the way. That Delta P was created during a lunchtime when the supervisors were on lunch, because they decided to take a shortcut in order to expedite the job. And who did it? Who took out the blank? Nobody asking that question. Who took out the blank? But we know the answer to that, because the attorneys for Paria, indicated and found out exactly who pulled the blank. Nobody is talking about that. But they want Petrotrin to pay, and they want man to go to jail, and this and that. Roger and them have no gumption. They can't talk. But you see, when you're losing $107,100 bills every month, it go hot you a little bit. I understand, Roger. However, it is Pushwaki whisper in his ears. I understand. So you go and you will sing for your supper. You don't have no money to buy the refinery. You got how should I put it? You got three times you were given the opportunity to buy the refinery. You bought the refinery? No. You know why? Because you can run nothing. And history has shown that with the OWTU. But you see, you have to sit down here and take that stupidity from people like that 30-year-old imps who want to be the next Attorney General, who knows nothing. Everybody all of a sudden want to talk and talk and talk. It is sad. I agree, it is sad. And compensation here should be paid, as I said before. But at the end of the day, let's talk the facts of the matter. And who created the Delta P? Ask the question, who created it? What was the cause of it? And did the workers have the correct equipment? Were they aptly qualified to do that type of job? Yes or no? Or was it an accident just simply waiting to happen? And none of it has happened. They want to blame Paria, and they want Newman George, and they want the Minister of Energy to pay. And what kind of stuff will I be listening to sometimes? These people just have pure hate in their heart for the PNM, and no matter what this government does, fire everybody and let the company run by itself, and everybody gonna be happy. Really? I want them to tell me when they fire everybody who they want to bring in. Name the persons who they want to bring in. But they will never talk about that. It's just fire this one, fire that one, fire the other one. Abdullah and them is a total waste of time. Roger is a total waste of time. Roger has no experience. Roger was the on staff before he became President General of the OWTU. He was an ordinary worker. So what are we talking about here? But all of a sudden, everybody know, and everybody care, and everybody understand, and they could do a better job. Really? But let Roger explain to us what happened to the 14 men who died in 1985-86, and what it is to learn from that. And what was the compensation paid to the families at that time? Let them explain that. I could tell you what happened to some of them. Some of them get work. But that's another story. Dominic, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Well said. It's time there. 770-1763. Dr. DCA says, I'm not convinced that Lynch analyzed all the facts when he made his findings. I would love to know if there were dissenting opinions on this analysis in the commission. See. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Dominic. How are you?
I am good, man.
Yes, good distribution from Jenny and Brian. You know, when you go through this information here, with this whole pattern incidents, it is basically a lynch mob, you know. Because you mentioned the factor LMCS.
Yes.
So I want to find out what LMCS get up at the back and everybody going after Paria. And when you put pieces together, this is just all of this is just political, you know. So come on, something. So when you fire the whole board, how that company will function? And how long it will take to get new replacement of people to run the company? So where do you want to fire everybody? Much money to be losing.
Yeah, demonstrating now. When people decide to take the government to court, when they decide to sue the company for wrongful dismissal, and bet your bottom dollar is UNC lawyers will represent it. The same UNC lawyers who now want to tell you that they should be fired. Hypocrites.
Yeah. Of course. That is all politics. And I have people out here who not even thinking straight because of their blind hatred for the PNM. Right around that. You know what this thing reminds me of so much? That situation of Raymond Timothy. They wonder how many people from the office. So don't be surprised any community you'll hear side petitions, they'll organize matches, and they might even go outside to talk to the outside media in the embassies. Just like what they did to Raymond Timothy. The homeless still big amounts of it. And notice too, they go after Stuart Young too.
Yes.
How the hell Stuart Young get involved in this?
UNC logic.
Or is it because he is so-called elected to take over from Dr. Rowley to lead the PNM? I don't know.
UNC logic.
Well, UNC logic indeed. And I am very sure that corruption, it makes sense from, and I agree that both Paria and LMCS and the group, LMCS should pay. And that is happening back. And let me tell you something, that's what Mr. G-String. If this man is in the political ring, he should take belly and stop going about 70 and political elected people. Because your boss took a Dota Barrett. You notice that she can't post up things anymore. Now you want to sue the Gerline because of that interview that took place. Really? So, God forbid, you might go after people like Michael Beno and Diane Marcel and Julia J. too, if they talk about you. And he might come after you too, Dominic.
Yes.
Well, I don't know, huh? Anyway, keep strong, huh? But I watch next time. And I will say the comedy is what will take it because I know the rest is this thing until the election.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chance, good morning. Hello?
Morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning, Dominic.
Morning.
How are you doing?
I am
you
good.
Right? Yes, I'm the other time. Well, I'm going to join you again today. Just 1 second. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
1 second. Yes, Dominic. Thank you very much. Yeah. And again, I want to compliment you on maintaining the communication with the people.
Yes.
And first of all, I want to say that you did mention about a week or two ago that there was a need for the government to continue its meetings and messaging to the people.
Yes.
I noticed that tomorrow there's going to be another meeting in San Fernando. Yes?
Yes.
PLM is having a meeting tomorrow in San Fernando.
Very nice.
And
Very
I think,
nice.
yes, I think that is a very good step. Probably somebody is listening to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good because the importance of communicating with the people. It is okay that every ministry is putting out online what they are doing and so on. But there is a gap between how you connect with the people, how you share the message with the people from the position of your governor. Right? And I think I applaud that, and I'm looking forward to the government doing more and more of that in different parts of the country. Right? Secondly, I wanted to say that in spite of all the effort of the youth to try to undermine the National Carnival Festival, as a citizen, I want to report that over the last few days, I have been what I call palliard hopping. And the society, large cross-section of the society, are out there in their numbers. Last night it was at Exodus, and there was ram cram in the palliard, overflowing on the streets. A large cross-section from San Fernando, Port of Spain, Sangre Grande, the whole country, people from Tobago and all was there. Right, Dominic? Yes. And it was an excellent atmosphere with good vibes. And I want us to continue to encourage our people to come out to our festivals. I know that we have the real challenge with crime, but that is part of what the UNC is doing. They are trying to smother the carnival. They are trying to push negativity so that people will not come out, and they will use that as a platform as they go into the election. But I think the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the right-thinking people, are smarter than that. And they understand they are taking the necessary precautions, and they are coming out to be part of the national festival. I want to congratulate them for that. And the other point I want to make is that I heard Jenny and I heard Brian. And Jenny was speaking from the position of labor law, and Brian was speaking from his years in the business of petrochemical and so on. But I want to say as a citizen, I am proud of the government on 3 counts. One, the people who are asking for a commission of inquiry, they got it. Secondly, they were saying that the government will not lay it in Parliament. Dr. Oli will hide something, and he will change something, and things like that. The government demonstrated that there's morality in public affairs, and there's transparency. The Minister Stuart Young went to the Parliament and he laid the document. And they went a step further. The matter went, a copy of the document went to the DPP. And the DPP is on a stage now where he is telling us, in spite of the recommendation that you charge for corporate manslaughter, he is indicating that is a challenge, but that is where it is. So I want to compliment our government, and we must look at it that way. In spite of all what they were saying, the government did the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And finally, I want to say that I hope that the government is going to continue to question Mr. Gary Griffith, because this country is replete with guns all over the place. And I have some questions to ask him, but I'm going to ask, I have quite a few, but I'm going to ask just 3 on your program. I know Mr. Stanley John spoke about a well-oiled, a thriving. That word thriving means it's alive and well, and it's moving on to the country, a thriving, well-oiled. But let me ask him this question. Didn't Mr. Stanley John also say that the way you distributed your shares You were trying to militarize sections of the society. Why are so many people out there with guns? And the other one, I heard Mr. Hines say, but didn't he also say that people who are pending matters for serious offenses and convictions receive FUL licenses? And I'm going to give you the final one for today. Didn't Stanley John also find that there were at least 2 cases where persons under the age of 25 years received FUL licenses? Those are some of the questions. I am sure that Mr. Hines and Dr. Rowley will continue to probe that matter, because that is an important cog in the wheel of what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago today. Thank you very much for the time, Dominic, and God bless.
Thank you so much, sir. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Dominic.
Morning, sir.
Well, I kind of scared. Don't tell me, Roger, and forget. And if you forget, Abdullah from the MSP should remind him it was Kamala who instructed the then Minister of Labor, Comrade Errol McLeod, to instruct Roger to report to work at Trinma as a President General at OWTU. Dominic, everybody this woman fired, G-String, Roger, and Jack, all of them gone back. All of them gone back. This thing about this family diving company, it's sounding like if them had no insurance. But to be contracted by Paria, the proper diving equipment and everything had to be there, not scuba. You must have communication, camera, tag line, decompression chamber. All the above was on the Coast Guard vessel. Note, the Coast Guard didn't send the divers in confined spaces. I have a practical thing about this, It's just that offshore, we doing a vertical and Paria was a horizontal. But when the diving company come offshore, they come prepared. Ours, they check out all the weights and things on the line and everything. They had a decompression chamber on the production deck. They had a camera. You cut off two bottoms from two drums and weld it onto a drum with a bottom, and you load that with weight. Because to every 20 foot, the diver would be so much distance off, and you hook that up on a chain sand line, and you send it down, and the diver clip on itself so he could remain to the top. And instruction, communication, camera, everything. Who on the bridge taking instruction from the foreman on production deck? Everything is prepared. You have a meeting before. A fella like me telling me I don't want no instruction from the diver because it have a kind of noise you're getting from on the Atlantic. So I'm taking it from the diving boss downstairs when to pick up. This is 36 inch going in a guide rail. Everything is in place. But if you check with Paria, they have to send and wait hours to get a camera to go in and check what they want to do. 9 people must dead, are gone.
Thank you, sir. And that's the part they don't talk about. That is the part they don't talk about. If I get a copy of the report, I would love to go through it to see what Lynch had to say about that. About the potential risks that presented itself in the early hours. But, I mean, you know, the UNC ain't going to talk about that because their mission is to hang Paria and make the government look bad, and then if they could get rid of the board, That's not going to start to talk about Newman George and his wife. And anyway, I fed up with these people. Brian.
Dominic.
Yes, sir.
You see, there's so much to talk about. Because I remember, and these are some of the things that some people are not talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The company under the manager, Colin Piper,
mm-hmm.
made overtures to other diving or companies to come to assist. It wasn't to say that an attempt wasn't being made. People with more experience, a lot of companies came with the equipment in order to assist. Many of them said, them ain't going down deep. Many of them said so. The Coast Guard came, but people were afraid to make the attempt to go. More experienced people accustomed with deep sea diving. I'm forgetting the name that they use for these type of people. Because it's so long now.
Commercial divers?
No, there was another name for arms. There's another name that they use. Not just commercial, but the point is that the company made efforts to bring in people to get other ideas, to get they didn't just use their own ideas. Mm-hmm. They called in reputable companies. They all came there. Remember, it was 25 hours of people standing over, deciding what to do next. People came with equipment. Some officers, some companies said, listen, when they saw and they observed the situation, they said they're not going. It wasn't just Colin Piper that made that decision as to who should go and who shouldn't go. Many companies came and said, listen, hey, hear what's going on. You see, me, I'm not sending my diver down there. They're holding them to account too. Or is this just PNM minister? Is it just because it's Petrotrin and Newman George? What Newman George had to do with it? What does that attorney? We ain't about diving, but no. And the one coming out, according to Kamala Prasad, the Prime Minister's private attorney, he too must be fired. He came on the board. Where are we going with this? If they bring information, we could say, okay, let us examine it. Fine, no problem. But you're just calling names out of a hat. Because you know why? When you check your box, all of them is PNM. All of them authorized and sanctioned by the PNM to be on our board. Fire the board. Fire the company personnel. Jail this one. Jail that one. And you have Prakash Samara bringing the families there and saying, nobody ain't giving nothing. He's suffering all these 2 years. And really? Well, why Prakash Samara didn't go to LMCS and say, listen, what about workmen's compensation? What about insurance for these workers? What about a GoFundMe account? Oh, something. But no, they want the company because they want to focus on that. They want the people of Trinidad to be able to focus on Paria, to focus on Petrotrin, because everybody have an axe to grind. Really? In the face of all this pain that the families are facing, all the grinding acts against, because all you have political overtones and political ambitions, because they so hate Dr. Rowley and the government and this PNM government. That is all it is, because they're not coming with any facts. Listen to when they speak. Listen to Abdullah. There are no facts. Ask them what created the Delta P. That is all I am asking. Who created it? Why was it created? What was the objective? Who pulled the blank? Why? What was the objective? That is all I'm asking, nothing more. That is all I'm asking. Because they're getting on as though Petrotrin wanted people to die. Colin Piper said he it grinding for days and nights and weeks. And I'm sure, I know Colin Piper. And I am, Colin Piper is a very religious person. Very, very extremely religious. And I know it is grinding him. But he had a decision to make. And I want to ask people, if you are telling me that you would have sent somebody down there, you tell me on what basis. And if you were willing to make that decision, not knowing the inherent risk involved, not knowing that this was something novel, never experienced before. They couldn't pull no book to say, look, let's read up and let us examine it, when this happened in this country, what was done. Tell us. But nobody ain't talking about these things. What they're talking about is jail, handcuff, according to Roger.
Yeah.
And clap. Yeah. Get rid of them. Roger have no experience and he shouldn't even be speaking on this matter. It's a waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's 8:58, folks. Let me thank you all for joining me this morning. Always a pleasure, as I always say, to discuss the issues and share my thoughts on a few things. So we'll see what transpires. The UNC is still on there. I think, but as Mr. Chan said, we have another meeting on the hustings, so that is good. These meetings need to be weekly, and I look forward to hear more details with respect to the government's $100 million intervention into the at-risk communities. That is another issue that is generating discussion. And let me just take this one. Hello, good morning.
Dominic,
Yes, sir.
here again. This Delta P, that was they beat up in that inquiry. That is differential pressure. The people who does be exposed to that does have to go to school and be certified every 2 years. And in my 30 years of charity, I have never met a diver in that school, which is in Oroput, which is well services. That's the local school that we have here. Divers no good. Who gave the instruction to remove the plug? Those are the things. Remember, they had a witness in that inquiry that they had to run from the court. He said he used to tutor some of them, the same divers. So you understand, the whole thing was a family thing. So I bring Beta and this one, and I getting big money, but Beta working, he had to argue, he getting a salary, and this, you've been doing something wrong all the time. And you get away with it.
Yes.
And no trouble. For a lot of people who will know, when a diver get the bends in Trinidad, we have no hospital here. It's Puerto Rico, we just send them to Puerto Rico. So it have a lot of things where people only bump in the mouth, especially them legal ones. They just playing on people, emotion. And this and money, and it's politics. And come on. The company have a drilling foreman. The contractor have he's saying the man who in charge of the contractor is the platform superintendent. Right? So it has to go to all of this. The diving company comes, you sit down, you work out everything, all safety, rights and things, camera. You seeing when the instruction, you hear in the instruction, the diver has to come up at 20-foot intervals. And then when he reach on top, they strip him and they put him in the iron coffin, we have all the decompression chamber, where they take out all the bubbles out of his blood scene. A lot of people only bumping them out. They are nothing. They know nothing about what they're talking about.
Thank you so much, sir. Clearly, that is a gentleman with experience in the energy industry, and we appreciate his contribution. And he made a very good point there. Is it a case that they were accustomed engaging in shortcuts? It's just that this time something went wrong. This time something went wrong and people lost their lives. So we're not focusing on that, right? So let us give them a free pass so that they could continue to engage in shortcuts and just make sure this time they get it right. Because we were doing it all the time, so clearly on that day, whatever it is, all they do wrong. To ensure that they fix the problems, that you don't have it happening again. But blame Paria for not undertaking a rescue, as they say. But let us not treat with the company that caused the accident in the first place, that engage in shortcuts that caused the Delta P, to ensure that they don't continue to engage in shortcuts. The man was demoted before, and yet still he was in charge of anyway. But do expect that party to talk about that, right? There's all we hear is Paria and Newman George and the Prime Minister's attorney, what's his name? Gosh, his name's just me at the moment. But that's all we're gonna be here. Colin Piper, they need to fire this one and fire that one and get rid of the boy. Get rid of the boy, fire everybody. Fire everybody and the company will run itself. Yeah? Fuel will just come to Trinidad just so, and it will be paid for, and the staff will be paid and all of that because the bank know them as clockwork at the end of the month. We're supposed to pay salaries and whatnot and send money to people bank, right? Yeah. Because anybody could just walk in and sign check. That's how it is work. But then the supporters want to talk about PNM people dotish and we drinking Balize juice and all kind of thing. But that is the kind of foolishness that they espouse. Because all they're bright and we dotish. Folks, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. May it be productive. We'll see what transpires over the course of the next couple of days, and God's willing. We will chat again on Thursday morning. Yes, so do have a good one. I'm out.